Hey everyone, this is Matt Poppin for MAG. We had a little bit of technical difficulties this morning, or this afternoon, so we're getting things set up, but we should start here relatively soon.
Mr. Vice Chair, we're ready for a roll call.
Good afternoon. At this time, Lisa Young will take a roll call to see if the quorum is present.
Hold up, Jonathan. We're not live yet. Sorry about that.
All right, can do.
We are getting close, everyone. We're just trying to get the meeting up online so folks who aren't in the committee can watch it. So just hang on, we're close. All right, everyone. This is Matt Poppin, Environmental Director with Maricopa Association of Governments. We are unable to live stream this today, but everybody on Zoom should still be able to participate. We are going to record it and we'll post the recording afterwards. So we apologize to anybody who you know of that was trying to watch this presentation live, but we will post a recording shortly after the meeting. So I'm going to hand it over to Lisa now and we'll get officially started.
Mr. Vice Chair, we're ready for a roll call vote at this time.
Thank you, guys. At this time, Lisa Young will take a roll call to see if a quorum is present.
Members of the committee, when I call your name, please respond. Walter Bouchard,
This is Taylor Campbell Mosley as proxy for Walter Bouchard.
thank you, Taylor. Heather Kraus, Beverly Chanowski,
Present.
thank you. Eric Massey, Tom Ekron,
Lisa, I apologize. I wasn't able to unmute my microphone. This is Heather Kraus for ADQ.
thank you, Heather. Kim Anderson, Robert Vondenacker,
Present.
thank you. Kenya Lugo Wait, Mark Ortiz, Dan Cisco, Hondo Judd,
Present.
thank you. Megan Sheldon,
Present.
thank you. Pete Burrell, Spencer Camps, Rick Williams, Kim Butler,
Present.
thank you. Nicole Clements, thank you. Michael Baez, Jennifer Peterson,
Present.
thank you. Katrina Gerster,
Present.
thank you. Anu Jain,
Present.
thank you. Benjamin Davis,
Present.
thank you. Ryan Templeton,
Present.
thank you. Tim Connor,
Present.
thank you. Brody Lynn,
Present.
thank you. Christina Hopez,
Present, and Kenya Lugo Wait from Chandler is messaging me on the side. She had trouble with her microphone.
thank you, Christina, and we recognize you, Kenya. Aaron Daughtery, Mike Chamberlain, Arden Holloway,
Present.
thank you. Susie Stevens,
Present.
thank you. Gregory Arrington. Mr. Vice Chair, we have a quorum.
A quorum is now present. Good afternoon, members of the MAG Air Quality Technical Advisory Committee. This meeting is now called to order. For those around the table, please turn on your microphone when speaking. For those participating via Zoom, please state your name when making a comment or asking a question. The MAG public comment process allows members of the public to comment on items on today's agenda or on items that fall under MAG's jurisdiction. If you would like to comment at today's meeting, please complete the request to speak form. MAG staff can assist with any questions you may have. If you've parked in the garage, a validation stamp is available on the counter. If you have purchased a transit ticket to come to the meeting, please see staff for a ticket. Hearing assistant devices are available from MAG staff. Our next item is call to the audience. This is the opportunity for the public to comment on items that fall under MAG's jurisdiction that are not on the agenda. informational items, or items on the agenda for discussion and not for action. 15 minutes will be provided for the call to the audience unless the chair requests an exception to this limit. I have received no requests to speak for the call to the audience. MAG also provides the opportunity for members of the public to submit written comments via the MAG website. Any comments received 2 hours prior to the meeting have been shared with committee members in advance of the meeting for consideration and will be included in the formal meeting minutes. MAG staff, have we received any online written comments for the call to the audience?
Mr. Vice Chair, no written comments were received.
Agenda item 3. Our next item is approval of the May 22nd, 2025 meeting minutes. Does any member of the committee have questions? Hearing none, prior to approval of the meeting minutes, there is an opportunity for members of the public to comment. I have received no requests for this agenda item. MAG staff, have we received any online written comments for this item?
Mr. Vice, no written comments were received.
Is there a motion to approve agenda item 3?
Tim Connor, so moved.
Megan Sheldon, second.
We have a motion from Tim Connor and a second from Megan Sheldon. A roll call vote will be taken at this time by Lisa Young.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Members of the committee, when I call your name, please state your vote. Taylor Kimball Mosley.
Aye.
Thank you. Heather Kraus.
Aye.
Thank you. Beverly Chanowski.
Aye.
Thank you. Eric Massey. Tom Ekron. Robert Vandenacker.
Aye.
Thank you. Kenya Lugo Wade. Mark Ortiz. Dan Cisco. Hondo Judd.
Aye.
Thank you. Megan Sheldon.
Aye.
Thank you. Pete Burrell. Spencer Camps. Rick Williams. Kim Butler.
Aye.
Thank you. Nicole Clements.
Aye.
Thank you. Michael Baez. Jennifer Peterson.
Aye.
Thank you. Katrina Gerster.
Aye.
Thank you. Anu Jain.
Aye.
Thank you. Benjamin Davis.
Aye.
Thank you. Ryan Templeton.
Aye.
Thank you. Tim Connor.
Aye.
Brody Lynn.
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Vice Chair.
Aye.
Thank you. Christina Hopez.
Aye.
Thank you. Arden Holloway.
Aye.
Thank you. Susie Stevens.
Aye.
Thank you. Gregory Arrington. Mr. Vice Chair, the motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Status report on the summer 2025 ground level ozone research project. This item is on the agenda for information and discussion and will be presented by Matt Frazier, Arizona State University.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to come and speak with you today to give you an update and some preliminary data analysis on our ongoing project. I think I was here a couple of months ago and gave you an overview of the project. So I'm not going to spend too much time talking about the project, but I'm happy to answer any questions about that. But I wanted to focus on kind of what we're learning. I think we all remember that the motivation for this is this apparent discrepancy between continued decreases in anthropogenic emissions of ozone precursors, and yet we don't have that same decrease in the ambient concentration of ozone going forward. So we have put together a sampling and a data analysis plan that includes ground level monitoring, 2 upland locations, Alamo Lake and Buckeye, 2 urban core locations at Durango, which is the big Maricopa County facility kind of down southwest of downtown Phoenix. And then the JLG Super Site, which is run by ADEQ over at about Indian School and 19th Avenue. And then we have 3 downwind locations in Fountain Hills, Higley, and then 1 farther downwind location in Queen Valley. So at those sites, we're doing monitoring of the volatile organic compounds, which are precursors to ozone formation, as well as the nitrogen oxides, as well as formaldehyde, which is an important consideration. We have 2 small mobile ozone lidars from NASA, 1 at Durango and 1 at Buckeye. Those systems were all deployed. Most of the data systems were up starting June 1. And if you have any questions about the data availability, I'm happy to talk to you about that. One of the first things I want to stress is that we're getting very good data return. This is something that we're monitoring regularly to make sure that whenever we have an issue with any of the sensors, we can respond to it quickly. And so we are regularly updating it. Don't worry about the big red line. That's formaldehyde. It's just a data field that's in the data collection software, but we're actually not measuring formaldehyde using our AutoGC. This is just for Durango. This is our AutoGC. So we're preparing this and monitoring and making sure that we're collecting the information we need. It isn't up to 100%, but that's partly because AutoGCs do require daily zeros and daily calibrations, which kind of eats into the data availability, but it's all within our anticipated and expected range. Nitrogen oxides is a little bit easier because the span gases are a lot easier to use. So we're getting good data capture on that, and we're also getting good data capture on our formaldehyde instruments. So that's kind of the status of where we are. And if you're following air quality, you probably realize that we haven't actually had an ozone exceedance in about the last month. We have been monitoring which days we do have ozone exceedances, where those ozone exceedances are, not just for here in the Maricopa County region, but we're actually looking more of a regional basis. So we're monitoring elevated concentrations of ozone in Las Vegas, Salt Lake City, and Denver metropolitan areas, because one of our hypotheses is the regional nature of ozone formation. So trying to figure out what the regional influence is, things like meteorological stagnations over the entire region, regional transport of things like wood fire smoke and other things. So we are monitoring. This was actually for June 18th. It was the last time we had an exceedance here in Arizona. But we also saw exceedances in Las Vegas and in the Salt Lake City metropolitan area on that day. I mentioned wood fire smoke, so we are, of course, monitoring wood fire smoke using the HMS tracking system. So this is from that June 18th date. And so again, we had exceedances here in Arizona and Nevada and in Salt Lake City, but none of the wildfire smoke plumes were directly impacting those urban areas. But that's not always the case. If you remember, about a week ago, we did have quite a heavy wildfire smoke originating from the Grand Canyon fire coming down here to the metropolitan Phoenix area. So if you look at the left, that's July 7th of no smoke in the region. On the right is July 14th and is a smoke region. Again, this is the NOAA HMS mapping system. One thing to point out, it doesn't necessarily say that the smoke is at the surface layer, and we'll talk about that in just a little bit. But it does at least serve as a first indicator that that's something we need to be aware of and actually to start to screen for. So I'm just going to show you some of the VOC data. I have spent a lot of time kind of looking at the ambient concentration. So these are all in parts per billion on a volume basis. Sorry, here in the room, it's covered up what the units are. But this is just some of the volatile organic compounds. Again, nitrogen oxides and volatile organic compounds have to be present. Nitrogen oxides is relatively simple because it's basically 2 compounds, nitric oxide and nitrogen dioxide. Volatile organic compounds are literally hundreds of different compounds. It's difficult to measure, which is why you have to worry about calibrations and zeros and everything like that. But it's also very informative because you can use the chemical composition of those volatile organic compounds to learn something both about their sources, but also about their reactivity. So not all compounds are have the same reactivity, and so we worry about some more than we worry about other ones. So if you look at the screen here, you can see at the top line there, that's total non-methane organic compounds, TNMOC. I think that's a TO14 measurement. That's the sum of all of the organic compounds in the atmosphere. I just grabbed 2 days, the 7th and the 14th. The 7th, no smoke. The 14th, smoke. I just did it daytime and nighttime hours because, of course, of the difference between the reactivity during the daylight hours to form ozone, and then the nighttime. The atmosphere tends to stabilize. Emissions from the surface get trapped a little closer to the surface. First thing to point out is just because we have smoke doesn't necessarily mean we have huge concentrations of some of the compounds that are associated with wildfire smoke. So the ones to look at are all the way at the bottom. Formaldehyde, HCHO is formaldehyde. Formaldehyde is a complicated compound because it's both directly emitted from sources like natural gas combustion, vehicle exhaust, wood combustion, but it's also formed by chemical reactions in the atmosphere. The chemical reactions that lead to ozone formation also oxidize hydrocarbons, and one of the intermediate compounds is formaldehyde. So I'm not going to make you look at a big old table of numbers. I want to point out a couple of things. We have seen some unusual events over nighttime hours, and these are very high concentrations. I would say these are very high concentrations of organic compounds, which are periodic, meaning they don't happen every night. They just happen on a couple nights, and so I picked one night that they did happen. Very, very high concentrations of things like ethane, butane, N-butane, not isobutane, but also very high concentrations of formaldehyde. 14 parts per billion of formaldehyde is a significant concentration. So we have to start identifying these and then look at all the information and see if there's any chemical signature that indicates, is this a periodic source or is this a regional transport type episode? But we were quite surprised to see these high concentrations just on one night. I guess that was 3 weeks ago.
Matt, if I could interrupt, what site was this?
Oh, I'm sorry, this
located
is
at?
Durango.
Thank you.
Yeah, sorry, this is all Durango. Another interesting thing is propylene. Propylene is a 3 carbon atoms with a carbon-carbon double bond. It is olefin, meaning it is more reactive than an alkane. And I just compare it there to isoprene. Isoprene is the naturally emitted biogenic hydrocarbon, which is also an olefin. I pointed those two out just because they're very, very reactive, much more reactive than their saturated compounds. So propylene is unsaturated, propane is same 3 carbons, but it's not unsaturated. And so I was surprised by the propylene. Propylene is a product of industrial operations, but it also emitted from mobile vehicle sources. But we know quite a lot about isoprene emissions from biogenics. I was just quite surprised to see how much propylene there is in the atmosphere. And that's not just a one-off. That seems to be a regular occurrence of having all that propylene in the atmosphere. And just comparing it to isoprene, it was quite significantly elevated. And then finally, formaldehyde. Formaldehyde, of course, as I mentioned, is interesting because it is a reaction product as well as a primary component. But this was a lot higher formaldehyde concentrations than I was anticipating coming into this. And so this is going to be something that's going to take a lot more analysis to figure out where it is coming from. Maybe it is a reaction product of something like isoprene, but it could also be directly emitted to the atmosphere. So those are just some of the preliminary analysis of the VOCs. I'll come back to formaldehyde. This is a lot of information. So again, this is also Durango. And so what it is, it's for the 8 weeks of sampling that we've had so far, going from the warm colors in the early summer to the cooler colors in the late summer. And we only did this through July 20th. So the last date is just 1 day. It's not a full week's. But this is the range of concentrations for formaldehyde on the top and nitrogen dioxide on the bottom. Again, nitrogen dioxide, that's the brown color that you see in the atmosphere sometimes during the daytime. Nitrogen dioxide, the gas, absorbs blue radiation out of sunlight, which makes the atmosphere look brown. As it absorbs it, it gets reacted away. And that's the reaction that forms ozone. So that's why it goes down in the middle of the day. And this is very well known that it goes down in the day. But we use formaldehyde and the ratio of formaldehyde to NO2 as this formaldehyde to NO2 ratio, or FNR. And that's one of the primary indicators of VOC limited chemistry versus NOx limited chemistry. If you're down in the bottom, that would be the kind of the red bar there. That's the range that people start talking about it being VOC limited chemistry. The way to remember this is that the number is low. That means formaldehyde is low. If formaldehyde is low, that is what limits the formation of ozone in the atmosphere. If you have a large formaldehyde to NOx ratio, that means you have a lot of formaldehyde relative to the concentration of nitrogen dioxide. So you don't have any limitations on the VOC chemistry. The VOC chemistry is plentiful. It's the NOx that limits it. And so what you see is that absolutely during overnight hours, maybe during the evening, and especially it seems during the early summer, which are kind of the red colors, you definitely are more likely to be VOC limited. The blue bars there is what we call the transition region, which means that the chemistry is kind of equally limited by the availability of the different reagent precursors going forward. But then what we see is definitely during the middle of the day, say from 10 a.m., 11 a.m., 12 a.m., or 12 p.m., excuse me, and especially during kind of the data that we have for, say, July, definitely looks like it's a NOx limited chemistry. So what that means is it's the availability and the concentration of NOx, which limits how much ozone is formed by the. Of course, this is just preliminary. And I want to reiterate, please don't cite this. This is just preliminary data that we're collecting, and I wanted to report it to you. We're also kind of looking at how the measurements are comparing to model runs. So NCAR does WRF-Chem. WRF stands for Weather Research and Forecasting with Chemistry. It's a model that's done. It's done with the 2017 NEI, the National Emission Inventory. It's not using the periodic emission inventory that MAG and others around the table spend so much time preparing. So I want you to take this all with a grain of salt, but this is kind of what we had ready availability to it. And it's this is for NO2. And this is going to be the challenge moving forward, is understanding what the emission inventories, how they compare to the actual observation. And not just doing it in one location, doing it across upwind locations, urban core locations, and downwind locations. So you see something like nitrogen dioxide, we seem to do really well at a downwind location at Higley. And again, this is just preliminary. This is just the WRF-Chem using the 2017 NEI. But we seem to be under predicting at the Durango complex in kind of the urban core. If you go to isoprene, we have some spikiness in the data, and so I don't know what's going on with the Fountain Hills monitor. I'll have to go back and look at that. But definitely looks like we're doing much better in the urban core, and actually doing okay in the Fountain Hills, at least in the early part of the summer in June for isoprene. And then formaldehyde. Formaldehyde is notoriously difficult to model because you do have both primary emissions and secondary emissions. You do see that spike occurring around July 7th that I had mentioned earlier, where we get very high concentrations, not just of isoprene, but of other hydrocarbons. So we have to continue to look at that. So that's kind of some of the data. I do also want to mention Matt had put out a very, we'd kind of sent some data around, and then Matt did a great job of summarizing it in your LinkedIn post recently. And so I wanted to show this. I don't know, do I have a pointer?
Red laser on there. I'm not sure if it's very visible.
Okay. Well, if you start kind of on the upper left-hand side of the graph, this is an ozone LiDAR. And so what this is a light source that goes up, and it the L in LiDAR stands for laser. It sends a laser beam up through the, through the atmosphere, and then the reflection of that light back off of the ozone molecule gives you the attenuation, which you convert into a concentration. So over here, the color scales, this is the concentration. So we all know that ozone, there's a good part of the atmosphere and there's a bad part of the atmosphere for the ozone. Ozone, you want it up in the stratosphere, way over your head, where it protects us from incoming ultraviolet radiation, and we don't breathe it. You don't want it down here where we breathe it because it oxidizes the lipids in your lungs, decreases your lung capacity, makes your lungs more prone to respiratory infections and things like that. which are all the health effects. So this high concentration of ozone kind of shown up here. This is like good ozone. This is not where we're breathing. We're not up at 11 kilometers of elevation. But you see, we start getting these fingers coming down. This is a meteorological fold, the tropopause, which separates the troposphere from the stratosphere. Occasionally, you'll get these intrusions. They're called stratospheric intrusions, where this concentration comes down. There's a little bit of one. This is June. I should have put this. Yeah, June 15th. You kind of get this one coming down. You get a much bigger one down here. It gets all the way down here. And you have this kind of elevated concentration of ozone originating from the upper atmosphere. Again, this is an entirely natural process which occurs, and you kind of have this additional things coming down here. The issue is once you start getting into this lower part of the atmosphere, this is where you can start getting mixing, and you can actually get an intrusion into the surface layer. You don't necessarily see it directly, but you see this higher concentration coming down. Unfortunately, we didn't have data at Buckeye. We have 2 ozone lighters. We did have some data on the 15th, which did show this kind of bend, but then the critical period here on the 18th, we didn't actually necessarily see it, but you do see this high elevation once the instrument came back online. But then this is corroborated by modeling. Again, this is the WRF-Chem model out of NCAR, which is done to predict. It's a prediction. It's not an observation. But you see this high concentration coming down on the 15th, and then again here on the 18th. And then this dashed line is the mixing height. So the idea here is the mixing height, the atmosphere, the lower part of the atmosphere that's well mixed gets higher during the afternoon from summer heating. And then once you get into this, you kind of see this mixing down here, and then this elevated concentration of ozone. We're talking, 70 to 80 parts per billion on a volume basis down here near the surface. So this is great because this is a corroboration of a model and the data observations. They all kind of align. And again, with this study, we want to be able to corroborate the models with observations. And so that's the real advantage for this. So with that, I just want to acknowledge some of our financial support from ADEQ, MAG, Maricopa County, ASU's Global Futures Lab, APS and SRP, and our local real estate development, and happy to take any questions from the audience.
Thank you, Matt. Do any members have questions or comments?
I just want to thank you, Mr. Chair. This is Mr. Vice Chair. This is Matt Poppin. I just want to say thanks to all the great work that ASU is doing, and appreciate you coming in early, sharing preliminary results. I know it's always dangerous to share preliminary results. I'll be doing that too as well later, but I'm just really excited about what we're gonna learn from this. Hopefully this will continue in future years as well. And yeah, just a big thank you from our part too, from everybody who's supported this and contributed to this. I think this helps show our leadership in this area too, as a community, as a region. And so it's just really great work. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Matt.
And I see Megan has her hand raised.
Yes, I just had a quick question on the data. Would you see VOCs from fireworks in the overnight hours in that early July period? And if you could see it, did you see any impact from fireworks?
Yeah, that's a great question. Usually the impact that we see from fireworks is more on particles rather than gases. Oftentimes in July 4th, you'll see an increase in the particles like PM 2.5. And I don't know if I've ever looked for it in the gas phase, but that's a great question. I'll have to follow up on that, Megan. Thank you.
For item 5, update on a Clean Air Act, Section 179B, demonstration of the impact of international emissions. This item is on the agenda for information and discussion, and will be presented by Matt Poppin, Maricopa Association of Governments.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair and members of the committee. I'll wait while that presentation gets loaded up. Super. Thank you. And I too will be sharing some preliminary results on some preliminary modeling work our staff has done. I've got Adam Shaw sitting next to me as well, our modeling manager. So if you have some very technical questions, I'm going to do my best job at summarizing the great work they have been doing. But Adam's also available here throughout the presentation to answer questions. So again, just in summary, why are we doing this Clean Air Act 179B demonstration? So really the purpose of a demonstration is to provide technical and modeling documentation that our non-attainment area would have attained the EPA ozone standard of 70 parts per billion, but for the impact of international emissions. Our attainment date was August 3rd, 2024. Because of the regulatory rules and how you demonstrate attainment, you have to do it this summer before. So really, we're trying to prove that we would have been at 70, but for the impact of international emissions in 2023 ozone season. What this does from a regulatory standpoint is if EPA approves this demonstration, it will keep the region at our current moderate classification, and it would prevent future reclassification into higher and stricter categories like serious and above. That provides us some certainty, and it gives us time for us to evaluate things like the GLOR work to understand ways that we can really reduce locally what we are producing and also what's out of our control, as opposed to just being reclassified to serious and maybe it wasn't local issues that were causing it. So this is something that we've really worked towards and we are hopeful and are expecting EPA approval of this demonstration once it gets submitted. And then lastly, I would say on that too is one of the things we have discovered is this demonstration can be submitted separately from a normal SIP revision, a normal state implementation plan revision. So we will be, once we're done with this demonstration, we'll be getting that up to EPA as soon as possible, and then we'll follow with a standard SIP revision, which I'll talk about a little bit more in the next presentation. Again, a little bit along with the work we're doing, we've also contracted with Ramble. They've done this type of demonstration for other areas, Utah in particular. And so we're working with them as well to provide technical documentation and modeling support on this as well. I will note that Ramble's demonstration does still rely largely upon the modeling files that our team is creating, and also relies on us to pick the right types of modeling files to provide them. So that's kind of what I wanted to go through today as well with you and show you the options that we've been evaluating. With that said, our staff is performing multiple modeling analyses. So we'll have, in addition to Ramble's kind of upfront, kind of here's our best estimate of what the ozone level is, we'll be providing lots of different estimates of the ozone concentrations from international impacts to provide a good body weight of evidence for this demonstration. All right, so let me get into the exciting stuff, the preliminary modeling work. So one of the things we are doing, and you're not meant to understand what this table means, but really what this goes to show is the amount of work that we're doing to evaluate the different modeling input data that is available before we choose and we tell Ramble, this is what we want you to use for our demonstration. There's several different global models that we can use to estimate ozone, and there's various input data involved in that. We can evaluate the different vertical layers. We can choose different meteorological parameters. We can choose to include, exclude wildfire emissions. So our modeling staff is really going through all of these permutations to understand how it affects ozone concentration. That gives us good confidence that we're selecting the best modeling run that performs the best for this analysis. One of the examples of how one input data can affect your modeling I put up here is just something as small as lightning. So in the global model, one of the emission sources that's included is emissions from lightning. And so in this case, we're evaluating the difference between lightning emissions in 2023 versus an older data set that was used in 2022. And you can see just switching from 22 to 2023, raises ozone concentrations in July by about 5 parts per billion on a global scale. So just one parameter can have huge impacts on your modeling. That's why we're taking this time to look at each parameter, trying to isolate which ones are most important, and trying to use the most available, the most current data available when we input this, when we submit this demonstration to EPA. Okay, one of the things that we're doing that Ramble will rely upon us is we're evaluating model performance. So what that means is we're trying to replicate the ozone concentrations that existed in 2023 with meteorological data and emissions data. And so if we can accurately replicate what exists in 2023, then we feel like we have a good starting point to understand the impact of international emissions when we remove them from the model. So what we're doing here, this is just 2 examples of what we're doing here. The gray bars are the observations. So that's what did occur in 2023 for each month. So you have April, May, June, July, August through September. The red bar is our modeling with the model called CAMEX. So there's 2 photochemical models available. One is CAMEX and one is CMAQ. So red is using the CAMEX model, and then blue is using the CMAQ model. So we're getting pretty comparative results using 2 different photochemical models. That's good to know. The difference between the left side figure and the right side figure is which global model are we using to estimate ozone concentrations. So we have what's known as a modeling domain that covers the western half of the US and most of Mexico. But how do we predict ozone that's coming in outside of that domain? That's where we have to use these global models. That's often known as boundary conditions or initial conditions. So the left is a global model developed by EPA. We got these files directly from EPA. And right is a more commercially available model known as GeoSchem. And so we're comparing the model performance between those 2 global models. You can see we're getting a little bit better model performance right now from EPA's global. This is a little bit confusing because this is, or a little misleading perhaps, because this is in the aggregate. So this is all 29 monitors across our 4-kilometer domain. But it gives you an idea we're getting pretty good model performance. We do have a couple months where we might be over predicting, and maybe in August we might be under predicting in some situations. But overall, this is pretty good model performance. How does that look on a day-to-day basis? So this is that same data, looking at it on a day-to-day basis. So again, the gray line is the observed concentrations. And what that is there's 29 ozone sites in our modeling domain. So 25 up here, 24, 25 in Maricopa County, 5 or 6 in Pinal County. And so we take the maximum 8-hour ozone concentration on that day and average it. So this is an average of all 29 sites. You can see the blue line is what the CAMEX model is predicting. The red line is red line is CAMEX, blue line is CMAQ. The top figure is EPA data, global data, and the bottom figure is GeoSchem. And you do see some outliers. You can see like on June 4th, you can see the models are over predicting ozone relative to what was observed. And if you look over around July 27th to August 1st, you can see the models are under predicting on a couple cases. But overall, we're getting really pretty good performance on average when we do these evaluations. This is just another statistical way to look at how a model performs. So this is a residual plot of observations versus predictions. If the model was perfect, everything would line up exactly on that diagonal line where every single observation was exactly the same as every prediction. So we're seeing good clustering around that line. We got about a 70% correlation factor in both models. So both models are actually performing pretty well. You do see some over prediction up there in the upper left-hand corner and some under prediction, but overall we're getting good model performance, and it's good to show that whichever global model we choose to use. And what we will do is after we finish all this model performance, we'll direct Ramble and we'll say, Ramble, we want you to use the GeoSChem global model with this data set. And then they'll perform the evaluation. But we'll include this sort of evaluation in our overall demonstration to show that no matter which model you use and which data set you use, you're getting pretty similar results. One other way of estimating the international impact is to look at source apportionment. So really the traditional way, and this is the main way that we'll demonstrate what the impact on ozone is to international concentrations, is to run the model once with international emissions included, and then the second time you exclude it. The difference between that is your parts per billion impact. Another alternative way is to just look at your current conditions and ask the model to break it up and say how much is coming from where. So in this situation, we did that. This represents an average of the top 10 model days, again, in 2023. So take your highest 10 days of ozone exceedances, what the model predicted, average those, and ask the model to say, where are those emissions coming from? So you can see they're saying about 25 parts per billion is coming from that boundary condition, from global models, the ozone that exists outside of our domain. One interesting thing, if you look at the crosshatch, that's Mexico. So we're getting about 10 parts per billion from Mexico. And then within Mexico, you can see that about 5 parts per billion maybe is from biogenics from Mexico, maybe 4 parts per billion is on-road emissions from Mexico. And then you can go up this as well. The diagonal are other US states. So that's your interstate transport. The little dots are emissions from Arizona, but outside of our non-attainment area. And then the non-attainment area portion is everything from about 55 up onwards. And that includes natural and man-made. So this agrees, again, pretty well with our historical 80-20 split. 20% is controllable locally, 80% is coming from outside of our non-attainment area, or is either natural sources. So this is another weighted evidence to generally support the ultimate findings of this analysis, of this demonstration. So what are the preliminary results? So basically, we've run it probably 5-6 different ways. We continue to do it some more, but the bottom line is attainment can be demonstrated in 2023. Almost all of the ways we choose to do it, we're seeing that. Preliminary test modeling runs indicate average ozone impacts from, and I'll just say man-made international emissions, not natural, but just man-made, of about 8 to 12 parts per billion across the ozone season on average. That agrees with prior EPA modeling done in 2021, which estimated about 8 parts per billion for the non-attainment area. So we're in good agreement with some earlier work EPA had done. And just to help put that 8 to 12 parts per billion in context, our current design value in 2023 before taking out wildfires is 80 parts per billion. So there's certain modeling runs that we do that is showing attainment even without excluding wildfires. Like if we were to believe that the 12 part per billion estimate is the most accurate estimate, we would be at 68 then and showing demonstration even before subtracting wildfire emissions. That would just be the impact of man-made international emissions. And again, that's what, so some modeling scenarios would demonstrate attainment even without removing wildfire impacts. When you remove wildfire impacts, and we're being a little bit conservative, we've chosen 31 days in that period between 2021 and 2023 that we think have the strongest evidence for wildfires. We've actually identified 76 days where we're pretty confident there was smoke impacts, but we just chose the top 31 of those for this analysis. That would bring, if you remove those days, that brings our design value down to 77. And then in that case, every one of our modeling runs shows that we would have been able to attain but for international emissions. Again, this is all preliminary. I like Matt Fraser's please do not cite little thing. I should have put that on all of these as well. But I did want to give you this heads up because we will be putting out the documentation in September and getting it up to EPA as soon as possible. So we're really excited about these results and wanted to share them with you ahead of time. So with that, I'm open to any questions the committee might have.
Thank you, Matt. Do any members have questions or comments? All right. Number 6, update on a revision to the MAG 2025 8-hour ozone plan. This item is on the agenda for information and discussion and will be presented by Matt Poppin, Maricopa Association of Governments.
All right, thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. This is a little bit shorter presentation, and as a follow-up to how this relates to that demonstration I just walked through. So we'll be doing two things at the same time. We're preparing this 179B demonstration, and we're also preparing what's known as a state implementation plan revision. So we've talked about this before, but I really want to just highlight again for the committee what the purpose of this revision is. So really the first purpose is to incorporate that demonstration that I just walked through to show that so what that demonstration will do in context of the SIP, it will replace what is normally known as an attainment demonstration. So that demonstration will be used in place of a normal attainment demonstration. So that whole demonstration will be an appendix to the SIP, and it will be relied on to demonstrate how we can demonstrate attainment in 2023. Again, we're going to use modeling to prove that we would have attained the standard, but for international emissions in 2023. Again, I just want to make it clear that that demonstration will be submitted separately to EPA so that the administration can act on it quickly. It's just up to the administrator's discretion. If he thinks the demonstration is sufficient, he's the one who will say yes. And then EPA's approval of that will keep the region in moderate status. The second real purpose of this revision is to address some of the other moderate area requirements that we haven't fully addressed yet in our prior submission. So we want to address reasonably available control measure requirements. And how are we going to do that? So basically how we do that is we describe, one, the region's existing control measures, all of the 90 plus measures we have in place already, and how those meet reasonably available control measure requirements. We also want to evaluate RACM in the context of what is needed to attain once you remove the impact of international emissions. So really what we're trying to decide here is what measures do we need locally to get us to attainment once we remove international emissions. We'll include an explanation of some of the current science we've talked about, how current local emission reductions achieved through existing controls have not resulted in lower ozone concentrations since approximately 2017. Although we're having a good year this year, probably jinxed it. I'll keep my fingers crossed. In one way, we want the exceedances because it's good for our GLORE project, but I think it's still better not to have them for public health and to get us closer to that standard. But we'll see. We still have a lot way to go in the summer. We'll also do an evaluation of available measures that were identified in the Ramble report that was put out in 2020-23. But ultimately, the final overall message of this section will be that the existing measures we have meet RACM requirements, and that's supported by the analysis done through 179B that we would have attained, but for the impact of international emissions. But we have to document all that. That's not included in the 179B demonstration, but it will be included in the SIP revision. And a SIP revision also allows the public to comment on and give their feedback that we have to provide response to. The other big portion of the SIP revision that we have to address that hasn't been fully addressed yet is how we meet reasonable further progress, rate of progress requirements. And really the big requirement here is to demonstrate a 15% reduction in VOC emissions. VOC only is what we're focused in on here, occurred from 2017 to 2023 as required by the Clean Air Act. So currently, we have a new methodology that was developed with the help of Maricopa County Air Quality Department on how we can demonstrate this requirement. And so we have presented that methodology to EPA headquarters, and they're evaluating it, and they'll tell us if they agree with that methodology. If so, then we have a way to show that we've met that 15% reduction in VOC emissions from 2017 to 2023. So we're waiting to hear back on that. We're hoping for positive news on that. So what's the big picture again? EPA approval of that standalone Clean Air Act 179B demonstration will allow the region to remain as a non-attainment area for moderate and avoid further reclassifications to serious or higher. Again, this doesn't remove any requirements that we currently have. It just keeps us at moderate and doesn't impose any stricter future requirements. And then secondly, once EPA approves the revision that we're preparing as well, that will ensure all moderate area requirements are addressed in our area, and that will prevent the future imposition of further sanctions. So if we don't address all these, theoretically, EPA could say, hey, you failed to address reasonable further progress. If you don't, here's some sanctions that are coming your way. So we want to make sure we address all moderate area requirements. So here's our schedule for, this is revised, it's tentative. Now that we realize we can separate submission of 179B from the SIP demonstration. So again, we're going to work through mid-September to prepare the revision. Hopefully late September is when it'll go out for public review and comment. We'll have our October 23rd, or maybe we'll push it back a week, October 30th Air Committee meeting to recommend that we adopt that revision and to discuss any public comments that we receive during the review period. November 12th is when Management Committee would recommend adoption. And then December 3rd is when our Regional Council would adopt the revision. So if we sort of miss that mid-September, if we don't publish in late September, then we probably have to wait until almost the end of January to get this up to EPA, just because of how our committee schedule works. Regional Council won't meet again until end of January. We could do a special meeting for them just to approve the plan, but we're going to shoot for this schedule and see if we can make it. Again, the SIP revision is a little bit less critical now that we're going to submit the 179B on its own, but we still want to follow through and make sure we submit the remaining requirements for the moderate area. And then shortly after that is when you get it up to EPA for approval. That concludes my presentation on that. I'm happy to take any questions the committee might have.
Thank you, Matt. Do any members have questions or comments? An opportunity will be provided for the committee members to request topics or issues of interest they would like to have considered for discussion at a future meeting. Are there any requests from the membership for an item on a future agenda? The next meeting of the Air Quality Technical Advisory Committee will be on Thursday, August 28th, 2025 at 1:30 p.m. Business is now concluded. Is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Tim Connor, so moved.
Christina Hoppus will second.
We have a motion from Tim Connor and a second from Christina Hops. The meeting is now adjourned.